Muhammadu Buhari of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
After a 6-week delay, Nigeria has decided, and Goodluck Jonathan's luck has run out. Muhammadu Buhari has been chosen to lead Africa's most populous nation. And between falling oil prices, a weakened currency and security threats, he certainly has his work cut out for him. Well, he's no stranger to the job, having been at the helm for 18 months in the mid-1980s. But now the 72-year-old has reinvented himself as democracy's champion and a moral compass for the country's leadership. So who is Muhammadu Buhari and what are his plans for Nigeria? I'm Beatrice Marshall and welcome to Talk Africa. Now, before we get to know Nigeria's new president-elect, let's take a quick look at how he got to where he is. Now, this is a map of how Nigeria's 36 states voted. The sections in green are the states where General Muhammadu Buhari won a majority. Those in the red, the states that voted for Goodluck Jonathan. As expected, PDP took the southern states where Jonathan has his traditional support. But perhaps surprisingly, Lagos State, expected to be a PDP stronghold, voted for Muhammadu Buhari. Perhaps a sign of a shifting political mentality. Now, if we compare that to the results from the previous election in 2011, you can see how that shift is taking shape. The division between North and South is pretty obvious. But Buhari was then part of the Congress of Progressive Change, or CPC. His results are in the green, so you can see his support base is firmly in the north. But when we look at the first map again, Buhari clearly retained the northern states. Over in the central region, the key states that changed their votes are Niger, Kogi, and Benue. As you can see, Buhari has also managed to win most of Nigeria's western states as well. And that's testament to the newly elected APC's political maneuvering ahead of the vote. They did this by forming a coalition with other political parties. And for the first time, the allegiances were not based on the north-south divide. This is essentially what helped Buhari win and perhaps highlights that Nigerians themselves no longer want to be divided. But despite his recent victory, it has taken 3 attempts for Buhari to finally win power. Let's take a quick look at the history of the man tasked with leading Africa's largest economy.
Born in Daura in Katsina State to a Muslim family, Buhari was the 23rd child to his parents. On graduation from secondary school in 1961, Buhari went to the Nigerian military training school, Kaduna, in 1963. Having received military training in Nigeria, England, India, and the United States, he was appointed a commander in the army, with his ranks rising as the years went by. He was involved in the military coup that ousted Yakubu Gowon in 1975 and was appointed military governor of northeastern state, now Borno, that same year. Buhari was later appointed Federal Commissioner for the Petroleum Resources by General Olusegun Obasanjo, who became military head of state when Gowon's successor, Murtala Mohammed, was assassinated in 1976. Although civilian government had returned to Nigeria in 1979 with the election of Shehu Shagari, dissatisfaction with dismal economic conditions led to another military coup on December the 31st in 1983. Buhari was chosen unanimously to be the new head of state. His tenure in office was remembered for a strict campaign against indiscipline and corruption and for its alleged human rights abuses. About 500 politicians, officials and businessmen were jailed as part of a campaign against waste and corruption. Some saw this as a heavy-handed repression of military rule, but others remembered it as an attempt to fight the endemic graft that prevented Nigeria's development. Due to hard economic times, General Ibrahim Babangida led a coup which deposed Buhari on the 27th of August 1985. Buhari was imprisoned for 40 months. Fast forward in 2003, Buhari ran for president and was defeated by former President Olusegun Obasanjo of the People's Democratic Party. Buhari ran again in 2007, but was also defeated by the PDP's candidate Umaru Yar'Adua. Buhari then stood in the 2011 presidential elections, but he again lost to the PDP's candidate incumbent Goodluck Jonathan. And the 71-year-old Muhammadu Buhari has proved he's not a quitter. In 2014, the All Progressive Congress Party nominated Buhari to stand as its candidate in the 2015 presidential elections. Susan Mongeli, CCTV.
Well, despite predictions of a tight race, the APC has secured a substantial victory in this weekend's elections. CCTV's Sophia Adengu managed to sit down with the party's Paul Ibe in the wake of their victory to find out more about their plans for a post-election Nigeria.
Yesterday I stumbled onto a material. It was the Sun newspaper, the local Sun newspaper, cover story of Mandela, having spoken to Buhari after he lost the election for 1 hour over the phone. I wonder what transpired between them, but the gist of the story was that Mandela told him that he was in prison for 27 years, and yet he became the president. I don't know what Buhari took out of that conversation, but the truth is that it underscores the tenacity. And there's a bit of, for those who are religious, like I am, there is no prophecy that can be foretold except it is the will of God. Buhari did not succeed earlier because he wasn't able to mobilize support from outside of his region. And that was what this pan-Nigerian coalition offered him. A bit of the north, a bit of the southwest, a bit of the north-central, a bit of the southeast, a bit of the south-south. And having built that coalition, the truth was that Nigerians also, living in the times that they live in, of insecurity, of the debilitating economic situation, signed on to the Buhari campaign. And I think to a great extent, he pulled it off because Nigerians wanted a change.
So give us a picture how Nigerians voted across the board and where it is that APC really turned the tide on PDP.
Well, the truth is that the APC had been in government for 16 years, and for a greater part of that period, Nigerians have not seen the dividends of democracy, so to say, in terms of the improvement of their lives and their well-being. And so people were willing to try some other party. And APC offered them. Don't forget that up to the time APC came into being, there has been no vibrant opposition. What we have seen is, disjointed opposition, splinter groups here and there. And I think the tide turned against the PDP. And also, to their own disadvantage, they never took the opposition seriously. They hoped that the alliance would crumble, but the alliance grew stronger. And any doubts about the authenticity of this alliance was proved at the end of their primary. And so whatever cracks that may have, people may have hoped will emerge, never, came up. And so the party went to the election as one solid, unified, entity. And more importantly, like I said, they had Nigerians who were already fed up with a PDP party that had largely offered, nothing.
So then, what message does President-elect Buhari have for the Nigerians at this critical point?
I think he offers them a message of hope, even in the midst of some semblance of hopelessness. He offers them hope that he will provide the kind of leadership that will give them a sense of belonging. And Nigeria occupies a pride of place, the biggest black nation, and on the face of the continent, and a lot of people look up to us. the challenges ahead are, they are huge. But then the truth of the matter is that he's a tough guy. Tough not in the sense that he's physically strong, but he's a man that has a will, and that's part of the challenges that we have faced. Political will to deal with issues. And so, he had told them that he will govern, he will not rule. For 16 years we've had taskmasters. Nigerians could be described as people who have been in slavery in Egypt. So this is time for liberation. And to have a leader who will, have a direct bearing on the people without being overbearing. And so what he has offered them, the citizens, is a hand of fellowship, for them to come on board, on this journey to make Nigeria, once more, a great nation.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Paul. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break now, but when we come back, we'll have experts from Nigeria, Nairobi and Beijing to find out more about the man who's taking over at the helm of Nigeria. Stay with us.
You voted with your heart. Your vote affirms that you believe Nigeria's future can be better than what it is today. You voted for change, and now change has come.
Well, that was the man himself, Muhammadu Buhari, as he accepted the results of the Nigerian elections this weekend. Joining us from Beijing to discuss the outcome of the election and what it means for the China-Nigeria bilateral ties is Liu Yufa, the former president of the China Institute of International Studies. Thereafter, my panelists on the program will put some perspective on how the battle for Nigeria was fought and what the change of guard means. In Nairobi, I also have Professor Peter Kagwanja, the Chief Executive Officer of the Africa Policy Institute. Welcome to the program. Professor Peter, I'll start off with you now. The ruling party lost for the first time since 1999. Was that upset, a surprise for you?
I think it was not a surprise because I think there were so many odds going against former President Jonathan. To the point that one could tell that the center was no longer holding, and therefore the outcome of the poll reflected the reality that incumbents don't often lose,
right.
But because Jonathan was destined to lose, he lost very closely.
All right. Mr. Liu, incumbents do not normally lose elections, particularly on the continent. What does this change of leadership, though, in Nigeria and perhaps the change of policy moving forward in Nigeria mean for China?
Well, I think China wants to congratulate the very successful general election that was held a couple of days ago, which will witness a peaceful transfer of power through the ballot box. It is very rare on the African political platform where a defeated leader would yield the defeat in a gentlemanly manner. And it is also a rare scenario under which the voters of a defeated party would remain calm and still toe the line. With regard to the bilateral relations, of course, China would like to see a continued strategic partner relationship between Nigeria and China. Right at the moment, China and Nigeria had a bilateral trade of $18 billion last year. And China now is the third largest trading partner for Nigeria and the third source of FDI.
How exactly is China, though, or what role is it going to play to ensure that that stability of Nigeria is maintained?
Well, right at the moment, as we look at it, the post-election social order is basically maintained, and the transfer of power is being carried out. China wants to see a very peaceful transfer of the power so that the new leader in the government will get on with the usual business with China to build up on the already sound, strategic partnership relations. Definitely, China and African Union have signed agreement to build up the cross-continent infrastructure networks, under which Nigeria will definitely contribute a great part, and China will do so. So China wants to make sure the bilateral cooperative relations will carry forward so that Nigeria will still serve as a bridge between China's dream to realize the national rejuvenation and the African dream to realize the continental rejuvenation. Back to you.
All right, just a very brief one before I let you go, Mr. Liu. How strategic, though, is Nigeria at the moment to China, given, of course, you've talked about its stability and the investment that is likely to come forward after this? How strategic is Nigeria for China?
Nigeria is a strategic partner on the framework of the Sino-African relations. And Nigeria serves as a bridge, as I said earlier, vis-a-vis the new time maritime Silk Road construction, and China wants to work and join hands so that the bilateral relations will be maintained, as well as the sub-regional closer cooperation between China and West Africa at large will be promoted.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Liu Yufa, the former president of the China Institute of International Studies, for joining us here today. Well, in the wake of the APC's victory, we sent out our reporters onto the streets of Nigeria to find out the general public's perceptions of the election process. Let's take a look.
Very happy. I'm just grateful to God Almighty.
This is the change we have been yearning for.
The people have shown their love for our nation and their belief in democracy.
He has overturned the legacy of the PDP party.
Now God has liberated Nigeria. Nigeria will be better. Our brother abroad will come back home. I so much believe in General Muhammadu Buhari and Professor Yemi Oshibajo. We are going to have free education in Nigeria. Never again will we allow religion to divide us.
I'm excited. I'm short of words. I don't know what to say today. This is a great day for Nigerians. This is the day we have been waiting for. In fact, we cannot have it much better than this.
This election made me to understand that all that I went through trying to ensure that I cast my votes, all the effort was never a wasted one. At least we begin to believe that whenever election comes up and we struggle to vote, our votes can be counted and our choice can no longer be taken for granted. So I'm just very, very happy for that.
And one of the things I expect him to do first is about the security issue. We need our security to be intact, and he needs to provide power for the people, that is electricity, so that because when these things are in place, then the standard of living of the people will definitely increase.
It is you, Nigerians, that have won.
The vast majority of Nigeria, they are all yearning for this seat. And this man has been contesting for this post of the president. And one of the greatest philosophy makes us to believe that if you want to fall, if you want to stand, you should stand like a tree. And if you want to fall, you should fall like a seed. Buhari has fallen like a seed and he's rising up to fight again. And today, he's now the president of Nigeria, and nobody can take that.
I want him to fulfill all his promises, to make sure that there will be empowerment for the youth, for women, and make sure that there will be development.
We're still here with Professor Peter Kagwanja, the Chief Executive of the Africa Policy Institute. And joining us now from Lagos is Mr. Liborius Oshoma. He's a political analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on the program. Liborius, let me start off with you this time. What is it like, though, on the ground in Lagos? It's been a few days now of celebration, particularly for the APC supporters.
Yes, it's been a huge celebration for the APC supporters. But in celebrating, they also are aware of the fact that the governorship election is just around the corner. And that's the government that is closest to the people. And so they've not completely, lost sight of the fact that that is a crucial election for them. And so they are celebrating with caution.
All right, but just staying with the presidential election, though, this was quite an upset, though, for the PDP. How big an upset was it?
Yes, it was a very big upset for the PDP. The PDP really didn't expect this. They didn't see this coming. Even though a lot of people, saw this coming, a lot of people had expected. The Nigerians have been yearning for a change at the center. And so, but for the PDP, they still believe, up to the last minute, they still believe that, they could carry the day. And even at a point, the PDP, the campaign secretary, public secretary of the PDP, did say that the APC were going to be shocked by the time the final results are announced. But at the end of the final result, it was the PDP that were shocked to their bones.
Professor, you're shaking your head. The PDP didn't see this coming.
The PDP didn't see this coming, and that is basically the fact that they don't seem to have turned when the turning point came. And the turning point was when Boko Haram started taking the better of the perception of Nigeria as a country under siege. And therefore, they should have seen it coming. Majority of observers who are keen observers on Nigeria saw it coming, not so much a distance. People actually expected that this is going to be the war, the battle of battles, to the point that there were even incipient fears that Nigeria might actually, get very close to where Kenya was in 2008 because of a very, very closely contested election and very touchy issues dividing the two parties.
But there is a picture that has been painted of Nigeria, though, that it has been divided along religious lines, along ethnic lines, along south and north. Did this play a role?
I don't think Nigerians need to celebrate the current victory as if it is change in the sense they are celebrating it. It is not, that kind of a revolutionary change, because Jonathan had already started making some gains in certain areas. For example, this election did not witness the normal religious fault line along which Nigeria's politics is divided. We didn't see the ethnic factor playing that role. We saw Christians voting for Buhari, who is a Muslim. And we also saw Muslims voting for Jonathan, who is a Christian himself, coming from the south. Remember, the time Jonathan came to power, the Delta State was awash with...
I'm going to jump in there because I can see Liborius there shaking his head. Liborius, you do agree with that sentiment, though?
Yes, I completely agree with him.
Even though the 2011 election was a bit of what you would call a consensus, but if you remember, Buhari also contested in that election, and he did score 12 million votes, which came mostly from the northern part of the country, and then also majorly from, you know, the Muslims community. But this election, it's different from what we had in 2011. And because if you look at states like Benue State is not a state you would say that it's a Muslim state, but though it's in the middle belt, and then also the APC won that state. And then if you look at states like Ogun State or your state also, where hitherto the General Buhari had never won election before, right from 2003, he did win the election in all of these states. So religion didn't play a major role in this election, and then also ethnicity also didn't play a major role, even though those people from the south part of the country, where the incumbent president is from, you know, voted overwhelmingly for President Jonathan, not basically because of religion, but because of, like some people have observed, that sentiment that still exists here, you know, because it's from that part.
There's one thing that's standing out, though, laborious here from where we are sitting. It's the fact that former President Jonathan conceded defeat. I mean, that gesture is being praised across the continent. How has that gesture been received, though, in Lagos itself?
Yes, a lot of people, most people now see him more as the hero of democracy, because it has never happened before, even where you see opposition or the government in power conceding victory, or where even if the opposition candidates, anytime they lose election, you see them always wanting to go to court, and it's always been that we'll finish this in court. And so for the first time, basically, Nigerians were shocked and awake to the fact that, you know, an incumbent president could actually concede and then call on the opposition to congratulate the opposition. And so we also see that trickling down. You see all the PDP chieftain now, you know, congratulating the opposition, including the president's wife. And so it's a welcome development. Also, it has opened a new frontier in the way, you know, Nigerians see politicians.
All right, Professor.
I think Jonathan is the hero of this election. He lost the war, but won the hearts and minds of Nigerians. I think that's how one would sum it up. And as my colleague Laboras is putting it, I think he has won a new image, not just for Nigeria, but for the African continent, that the era when people would be contesting elections, even when it is outright clear that you've lost it, seems to be fading away fast. And I think that's where we needed to commend him and begin to look back at what kind of a leader he was, and whether he was the villain that was depicted during the campaign period. And one would say simply that he achieved a lot in terms of stabilizing the country, or parts of the country. Of course, he was unable to stabilize other parts of the country because of the nature of the problem, but he did well.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights. Boris Loshoma joining us there from Lagos, and Professor Peter Kagwanje joining us here in Nairobi. To you both, thank you for being on the program. That's all for Talk Africa this week. Please do join us again next week. Goodbye.